Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the Rock Show with Connor Farrell. This is day 2 of 26 of good habits. We're working on good habits here. Healthy habits doesn't mean we can't have spurts of rage and anger, but how do you use that energy, right? Is it productive? Huh? Do you make something beautiful and create? Or do you sit there and fester? Anyways, today's song of the day, we're going Bandoliers by Them Crooked Vultures. I went for a run today. And that was the song I listened to as I drove down to go do the run. So we've got that. We've got that out of the way. Let's really get that out of the way. Now, here's what I'm doing. Okay? Got a couple things I'm going to work on. They're the priorities, so to speak, which is getting starting to build working relationships with at least one producer, right? And then you probably want to start working with multiple, just so that if one falls through, you've still got something going on. And basically, I think you would just you'd probably split it as like songwriting credit, right? Probably say like whatever 49-51 or however it works. But basically, the kind of split that Taylor Swift does. But yeah, so the idea is that they make like the bass kind of like bed tracks and production and stuff, send it over to me. I do vocals, I do lyrics, I record whatever they need, right? They just be like, we like that, I like that idea, I don't like that idea. Have you thought of this lyric? You know, you know, work on the ideas, but then I put down kind of what's definitive, send it over. They mix it, send it back. If it's not working, I just do different vocals, where we move on to a different track. Yeah, so that's kind of I think that's the Taylor Swift method, at least according to Rick Beato and Ted Gloria, I believe, who he was speaking to when they talked about that. But that's the idea, that's the plan. So yeah, finding producers to work with, and then the next thing is going on TikTok and or whatever, sites, but making reels, making things talking about like, this is the mission, this is the vision. Basically, rock will eventually get to the point where comedy is, where you've got shows that people can go on, that other established people are on, um, that can be used to launch people's career and help them build their own audience so they can do the same for other artists, right? And so the current working word I've got for that is kingmaker, you know. But I think if I go and I say to people, hey, I'm going to be the kingmaker, maybe that pitch is a little, they might be like, who's this guy? He's arrogant, uh, which maybe you can't get around. Maybe it's something you've just got to deal with, and people are going to say that. But there might also be a better way to phrase that with connotations that people are just like, well, I can't argue with that. Yeah, I got to support. Because that's the idea. You want to have the pitch refined to the point where you can say it simply, you can say it fastly, you can say it without having to think about it too hard, and people can't argue against it. Right? Even if you don't like my tastes, even if you don't like what I have to say, if you want rock culture to come back, it's got to start somewhere. It might as well start here. Right? The rock scene's going to blow up, and it's going to be big. Do you want that to happen now or way, way later? Right? And so the plan is get the rock stars, get these rock people on. Eventually you want to get the big people, the big stars and big names and whatnot, right? Rock stars, comedians, just big people that people go, oh, these guys are really big and they're really successful. And then eventually that credibility goes over to my podcast and people go, oh, so if someone's on here, they're a real, like, serious artist or musician, right? And so by getting all the big guests, people then come to respect the show as a place where they can come and find people that are genuinely going to affect, rock history in the future the same way these people have in the past and in the present, music and culture and whatever, right? And so that's the whole idea, yeah. And then eventually, once some of them start to pop off And maybe some of the like other people, let's say like a band like Royal Blood or something like that, if they started doing a regular podcast, inviting, big people on, but also they're big enough, right? They're not, I don't think they're as big as the Foo Fighters, but they're still like, one of the big rock bands. And so, yeah, if Royal Blood started a podcast, let's say, and they started having, smaller bands on, right? Because I think there's something nice to having someone open for you on the road. But honestly, the exposure they're getting from that is the people in the audience are seeing that opening band once. They're not really getting to find out much about them, to endear them to the band and to feel like they're joining them on their journey. They're just getting whatever songs or performance they have right there, that one time. And most people take whatever, they say in marketing, it takes 7 times of interacting with something before you become a fan. So if you think about it like that, it's like, well, then they're not going to, it's very unlikely anyone's going to really become a fan. And if they do, you're barely going to convert any of your audience who's at the shows, right? Now, if you did 7 nights in a row and the same band was opening each time, right, that might actually lead to people going, oh, 1/3 of the audience then goes and really checks out the band and gives an honest attempt at seeing if they can get into their music and get into the style of the band. But, that's currently not what's happening. So let's say, if you really wanted to increase the odds that people actually go and convert and go and check out that band, you would want to have a podcast or something, and then over the course of a year, bring the band on 7 times, especially if you do the podcast, let's say 5 days a week. That's 250 podcasts a year. So what? Once a month, or not even once a month, but like you could bring them on like once every like month and a half, right? Especially, yeah, if every month you're doing 30, that's what it is. Yeah, if you're doing like what did I say? Blowing into the mic. You guys love that on the audio experience. Now, once again, I got out of the shower. My hair's all crazy. Woo! Anyways, I think, yeah, if you get these bands and you get them on, you get the actual exposure regularly, repeatedly, and you have them come on a couple times a year. After 2, 3, 4 years, I think they will be a name in and of themselves, and then they will be able to do the same thing with other bands. And this is something that Joe Rogan talked about, was the beauty of LA, was that you had rock stars, comedians, and actors all hanging out. You had artists hanging out with other artists. And so people would be going to a show to see if another celebrity was going to come to see the comedian, and, vice versa. It's like, who are you going to see at the rock show? Who's going to be backstage, right? And so that interplay between different audiences could kind of help make a scene, culturally speaking, rather than just within one specific, medium, right? So you might like a comedian, you might like a band, but now you're like, oh, I like this band, and they like the comedian, and they like this actor, and so there's a whole kind of culture. There's starting to be something bigger than just one thing that comes together to be beautiful, that more people can, get into and ascribe to and get, kind of related to. And right now we've got a lot of like micro culture, a lot of like little small things, and we have a lot of huge things that are super corporate, like billions of people. You don't have, in rock at least, you don't have a lot of mid-range stuff. And what you do also have is you have old people, I mean, old in the sense that they're not in their 20s and 30s, and they're not like starting bands and playing with people. You've got people in their 40s and 50s who've been in the music scene a while, and they've got all these connections with all these bigger stars. But the thing is, they're just not the demographic, and their goal isn't to grow an audience and expose people to this. It's more to just hang out with their friends, build their kind of community, which is great. But the mission for the rock show is to build an audience such that we can propel rock forward. So the problem with a lot of these big bands is, I was watching the Nickelback documentary 2 nights ago, and they were talking about what happens when the band stops, right? What happens to all the fans, all that community? And I've got this idea. It's like all that momentum stops and dies, and all those people kind of wander off when the band stops, right? And then they have to like try and find new bands, but there isn't really any record labels or things throwing new bands at people, so they're just wandering. So slowly over time, people run out of active bands that they're fans of, right? Especially ones that are like making their best music right now. You could say a band like Metallica is great, but I don't think Metallica is making their most original iconic work right now. And there's nothing wrong with that. But that is a problem for culture, broadly speaking, if you're a fan of rock. So that's where something, if you look at like, if you look at, let's say you do something like Nickelback, preparing for when they eventually want to retire, if they decide to, right? What they could do is they can take another band that's much younger and who can learn a bunch of the Nickelback songs, and they can have them come out first or like play after them. I think before them, but one of their openers, could play like a couple, like play like kind of like part of the set, for them, and then play some originals, and you could just have them open for them for like 4 or 5 years, and slowly transition to playing like a bunch of Nickelback and a bunch of new songs, and but yeah, I think that's a way of actually passing on the torch. And so imagine if also like, Chad Kroeger, let's say from Nickelback, let's say he started a podcast, right? And even if he did it 3 days a week, but if he brought this band on, once a week, talking about what they're working on, what they're updated on, eventually that band, the Nickelback audience, I think most of it would map over to being a fan of that band. Now, let's say you really wanted to have everything covered, right? Then you do it with two bands, right? You do it with one band that kind of goes in one direction, that takes what you do and goes one way, pivoting off of your style. And then you do one that kind of goes in the other direction. And then you put them together, having them play on these shows before you every time you tour. And you have them come on every other, couple episodes, right? Now, after like 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 years, those bands are big bands in their own right. And so the momentum of your fan base didn't just drop off in kind of like a match being put out. It didn't just extinguish. Instead, it keeps going. It keeps growing, right? Almost like a football team, right? Imagine if every time, every like 30 years, each football team or sports team just says, nope, we're shutting down entirely. And then there's going to be, I guess there might be more people playing football eventually. Like, that'd be crazy, especially for the fandom. It would go nowhere, right? And so I think the idea is coming up with solutions for what Rock's doing, and I think one of those is building a platform geared toward putting new people on the map. Now, I think it's like entropy, right? I think over time, people will be doing rock podcasts like I'm doing here, like the Rock Show, and I don't want to be the only one, right? That's not the intent. The intent is get one of us to blow up, and I can only speak for myself, but get one of us to blow up. Then you put on game everyone else. You put everyone else on the map, and they can blow up after like a year or two. Now they're right. Look at like Joe Rogan brought on Theo Von. Theo Von is now a commodity in and of himself. He's a kingmaker. Theo Von can put people on the map. That's what you want to do, right? And then same with like, let's say like Tim Dillon. He's a big person now. You've got all these different comedians, and there's a lot more. But just using really big examples, really clear examples where you're like Bert Kreischer. Bert Kreischer was not nearly as successful as Joe Rogan when they first started hanging out and doing podcasts. And when I say successful in the sense that he was not nearly as influential, he couldn't have put people on the map. But he's friends with Joe, talk about comedy. People got exposed to him, got exposed to hearing his story, right? And they connected with him, or at least a portion of that audience overlapped. And then now he's a kingmaker, and he can put people on game to other things. We see even Bert Kreischer is having on like Papa Roach, he's having on Shinedown, he's having on Corey Taylor, he's having on Gavin Rossdale from Bush. You've got all these different people who are going on, and you can see there's a mix of culture. Or take like the Adam Friedland Show podcast. They had like, or maybe just the Adam Friedland Show, which is Nick Mullen and Adam Friedland. And they had Matty Healy from the 1975, more of a pop act than a rock act. But it's the same exact concept, right? You have these people on, and then you can have smaller people on who are good. And then eventually they become kingmakers too. And there's lots of you. There's lots of you to go around and to blow other people up. And so it doesn't matter what my tastes are, and if you like my tastes, right? If you want there to be a kingmaker, if you like that art form, there needs to be kingmakers in every art form. So you want there to be kingmakers in every art form, right? Okay. Well, then look at that. What happens there? I'm going to get some water. Do, 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 do. La da 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 da. Yeah, and so the most important thing to me is growing the podcast and bringing back rock, bringing rock culture, you know, because I think what happened with comedy is the entertainment industry on the comedy side kind of died. They stopped making these big comedies. They were too risky, right? And then podcasts emerged, and 10 years later, 20 years later, now you've got a whole scene with all these different kingmakers. I think rock's the same thing. Labels have stopped signing rock bands, but rock bands still think they need to, you know, make albums and do this whole thing, and they just play shows. It's like, no. If you want to look at how the comedians got big, it wasn't from the shows. They do the shows because they want to be good at comedy and they want to grow as comedians in their proficiency. But the way they become successful is by podcasting. It's by building an audience, building a community. Okay? And right now, the way you build a community as a band for 99% of them is not by in person. People will come to see you after you've hit. After you've hit the scene and you can do music full time and you are making money like that, that's when they're going to come out to your shows. And at that point, then it just grows exponentially and boom. But it's like escape velocity. It's like, how fast do you have to go to escape Earth's atmosphere, right? And so the whole from the ground until you're out of the atmosphere part and you've escaped Earth's gravitational field and you're just in space. In space, it's really easy because space is literally empty, or for the most part speaking, right? You don't have gravity pulling you down, you know? You can just go, you can just keep going. But it's that hard part is the middle there, is that first part. Like 99% of the work is there. 99% of the difficulty is there. And all of that is done on podcast. Or at least that's what's happening with comedians, and there's no reason that wouldn't happen with rock too. Now, does this bias towards people, in the old days, it would bias towards people who are good live. And it's the same thing with TikToks. It's not just podcast. But with TikToks, you build a fan base, but I don't think you build as much of a community. You don't build a connection. You can build a community with a TikTok, but you don't build an audience unless you actually sit down and talk to them. Especially, like, people can't relate to you, or even if they, like, don't like you at first, or they pity you, or they don't like you, and they think you're awkward, and you think you're weird and stilted when you're talking on camera. It doesn't matter, because they actually have a person they have a personality they can attach to, or not attach to, right? I mean, it's this idea of a front man, right? Look at Rivers Cuomo from Weezer, or Tom York from Radiohead, or Damon Albarn from Blur, Chad Kroeger from Nickelback. People attach to personalities. Jack White from the White Stripes. He's very outspoken. He has a lot of political views that I probably don't agree with. You know what I mean? But I love that he's talking and he's posting stuff, and that he's keeping his community alive. Even if I haven't been checking out like most of the stuff he's done since the White Stripes, I haven't been listening to it. I honestly haven't felt the urge. It's not because it's not good. It's because I have other things going on in life. It hasn't occurred to me. I barely listen to any Nickelback. Because I don't like Nickelback? No, I like whatever I've heard. I haven't checked out everything. I'm 21. Who cares? And there's no pressure to. What I'm saying is, the fact these people are active and they're talking, people want to connect to a personality. They want to connect to a front man. And so, I mean, look at like the punk rock NBA. He doesn't like half of the bands I like. He hates almost every band I like and likes almost every band that I think isn't that good. But I'm happy he's there. I'm happy he's doing it. I watch his videos. I like to support his content because he's like one of the only people doing the rock stuff. But here's the thing is, like, he'll bring on some bands, but I don't think he's really going hard on the podcast, because I think his bread and butter where he makes his money is from doing his normal videos. And that's what I think he's good at and what he likes doing. There's nothing wrong with that. There's lots of people who make music content and they're like playing guitar and they're doing stuff. But I don't think anyone's realizing it's like, we can bring back rock. We can bring back this whole thing. We can make there be a new age of rock. There will be. and we can kickstart it right now. It seems like none of these people get it. And like Rick Beato is great, but he's having on all these old rock stars or people who already blow up and are already super like well known, and like, look, they're doing crazy deedly deedly on guitar. And there's nothing wrong with that, but like, whatever you can say about musical innovation, people connect with the message, they connect with people, they connect with the story, they connect with what's evolving, what's live, what's happening new now. And as much as it's exciting to go see Polyphia, now that they're big and successful, and they've been big and successful for years, it was much more exciting when they were just blowing up. Like from 16 to like 2021, that was when it was really crazy and fun and cool to listen to Polyphia. I don't really check out any of their stuff anymore now. I listened to all those albums. I went through because it was like so cool. It was happening. There's nothing wrong with being successful and big and interviewing those people, but you want to interview people that no one knows about. Breaking bands, that's the energy. That's what gets people excited. Nothing is more exciting than seeing someone going, than seeing them again a year later being like, wait a minute, I think I've seen them before. Going, oh, you know what, they're kind of interesting. Then seeing them again, and then seeing them again. And after 4 or 5 years ago, oh my God, this guy's a maverick. You know how many times I saw Theo Von clips before I ever listened to any of his podcasts? Or I even was like, I kind of like this guy. I was just like, I just didn't get it, wasn't into it. So many times, but the excitement of seeing that happen. Now that he's big, it's great. But and I think comedians have a little more freshness to them, because with bands, they can kind of just get into a groove. And I don't feel like Polyphia has the most personality, just as an example. But it's also it's because they did something crazy with the music, not because they had a great message. Do you know what I'm saying? Polyphia has an aesthetic, but I don't think they have a personality. Like, you're not like, oh, Tim Henson, I really want to hear him talk to actors and other artists and painters and people, and I really want to I'm engaged with the personality. It's not. It's not. It's all about the music. There's nothing wrong with that, and that's a great part, and that is part of it, right? But it's kind of funny. Like, comedians even know on podcast, if you're just talking about comedy the whole time, yeah, I went to this club and I did this, and I was putting my punchline here in the set. After a certain point, it's just yeah, but you're just do the work when you're doing the music stuff. This is people want to connect to a person. People are always going to connect to a person, and people think with AI, music's screwed. It's yeah, your boring ass stuff is going to be screwed because you're just focusing on the craft. Nothing was ever about the craft. I mean, it's great, but the reason craft is great is because there's people, there's personality, there's a story, there's a narrative where it's growing and building, and there's always going to be a distance with AI. There's always going to be a distance with things where it feels inauthentic or overproduced. It's not the production, it's the fact that it feels like they're not following you on a journey. And so you could say Taylor Swift is highly produced music, but there's a person, there's a story, there's a narrative, there's a journey you're joining her on. There's a community, there's that whole thing. That's the reason it works. Ed Sheeran, you can say, oh, he's formulaic or whatever. I barely listen to any of his music. I have no clue what a critique is. I'm just making up a critique. But I saw him on Theo Von. He looked like a chill dude. He was funny. He was joking around about hooking up with the bear from Paddington. It was hysterical. It was just crazy. It was fun. And I was like, I like this dude. I like what he's doing. I want to go listen to Ed Sheeran now. I probably in a million years would have been like, don't ever make me listen to Ed Sheeran. Then I find out about his personality. Now I instantly am like, I'm going to make myself like his music no matter what, because I like the guy, or at least have an interest off the impression I have from him. You see how simple that is? It took one interview, one friggin' podcast, and now I'm like, I need to check this guy. You know what? Royal Blood, they brought their opener when they brought them to Phoenix. They were interesting. I think their name was Hot Wax. I actually really dug a lot of their stuff. Have I ever listened to them again? Have I listened to Hot Wax again? No. Why is that? Because I haven't thought of them until right now. That's just human psychology. You got to see people multiple times. You've got to see them later. You have to remind them. Why do companies I don't know, Nike, Coca-Cola, why do they keep running ads? Is it because no one's heard of them? Everyone knows them. You need to be reminded. We like to be reminded. We have other things going on. Just because you're good is 1 out of 10. It's it's 10% of the thing. It's 10% of being a Coca-Cola is people knowing you. The most of it is having an interaction with them, feeling there's a communication, feeling like there's something interesting going on with you. That's all people care about. And then with people, there's always things interesting going on with them, especially an artist, because like you've got a world where art is not kind of like there's no structure built to put you on it. The only way you're getting to be an artist, you know, and being exposed to people is you're going out of your way to do it, or you've done something notable and people who already have a platform are putting you on, and they want you to then build a platform and an audience, right? How dare you platform them? Platform anyone who you think is interesting, and if people resonate with them, they'll go platform them themselves. The audience is who platforms people, honestly, really. You can put someone on, but it's up to the audience if they want to listen to that person or hear what they have to say or see what they have to say. It's up to them. And people kind of self-organize. Ooh, look, my hair's starting to dry. My hair's starting to dry. It probably looks very interesting to you. It's very interesting. Actually, yeah, here we go. Let's see. Boom. My hair is kind of dry. I'll style it with a comb, of course, make it look all good, like a little greaser, like something like that. I'm probably a little sunburnt, looking like the Liver King, looking like I got high blood pressure from the trenbolone acetate that I'm not taking. No, I'm 21. I just have good genes. I'm Polish. I always bulk. I always add mass to my frame. So that's what we're talking about. That's what we're talking about. You want to build a platform, put people on. You want to build something, momentum. This stuff is a franchise. It's like the WWE, right? It's about story. It's about narrative. It's about building moments. About building a franchise. Tony Hinchcliffe got that with his thing, and I think the fact that like so many comedians bombed, like I was watching for the last 2-3 years, Kill Tony, right? And they'll have on lots of people who aren't prepared or aren't very funny, and it really kills the momentum of the show. But in spite of that, the fact that so that's where I'm saying like kind of like the show itself is set up to not be as engaging and to actually get you to want to click off because it reliably has moments that are bad and unentertaining, and then it's dependent on if they can roast the person without the person getting in the way of the momentum of them roasting them. Like it's literally like it has things built into the structure of the show that would make it lose momentum and get you to click off. But the reason it's successful is Tony knows it's all WWE. It's all pro wrestling, right? And he plays that game, and then the show works, and the show gets better. And the more he plays the game, the better it gets. It's that easy. It's not. Everything's easy. Everything's hard. Cool. It's that straightforward. It's binary. This is what I talked about last episode. It's binary. Did or didn't. Can platform people, can't platform people. Can do it full time, can't do it full time. I like the song, I don't like the song. Good production, bad production. I like their voice, I don't like their voice. Binary. Voice, it's how I'm singing right then. Because like Royal Blood, that first record, before I knew it was the same band, the different singles off that record I thought were like different singers. I didn't realize it was Mike Kerr. But yeah, that's all the game. The game is platforming people. Look here, 29 minutes. Oh my God, let's stand here. Let's puff my chest out so you can see my pectoral muscles and my shoulders. You can see my shoulder to waist ratio of 1 to, I forget the golden ratio, but it's like 1.61 something. Anyways, waist to shoulder width ratio. So you don't need to like what I like my ideas. Well, you need to like my ideas, but you don't need to like my music of Black Licorice. You don't need to like my style. You don't need to like my face. You don't need to like my aesthetic in terms of how I dress and what kind of art I like. You don't need to like any of that. You just need to be a rock fan who wants rock to come back. You just need to be someone who likes rock music and who wants to be a part of the next great generation of rock. Rock could skip a generation. It could skip Gen Z, and bands wouldn't start until like 15 years from now. Gen Z could miss out on rock shows, pretty much. You've got the small DIY things, but honestly, they're pathetic. I played a million of them. They're pathetic. Just being real. It's pathetic. Nothing wrong with doing it. It's fun. It's good. You can build an audience that way. It's stupid. If you're just looking at what can you do, what's going to lead to results, and you're working backwards, you wouldn't start there, because the internet, and there's so many different incentives for people to not want to go check out your stupid show. And if they do, you need to have good audio. You need to have good mixers. You need to have good lights. You need to have all of this stuff. You need to have good logistics when it comes to amps. You need to have people not break into your car and steal your stuff. This is stupid. It's stupid. I'm making a bet. I'm making a bet that's saying I'm going to do a podcast every single day for 10 years. Maybe after 5 years it blows up, and then, we go down to like 3 a week. Okay. Maybe I bring on a co-host in case like I'm singing and I don't want to overtax my voice. Okay, maybe we take a week break. Maybe we do like Joe Rogan where it's like 3-4 days. Maybe I do a couple 2-a-days and put them out on other days. But what I'm betting on is that this will work. I'll make a podcast. I'll make a platform. And I will have producers who know how to do the engineering, who know how to do the back end. I will be front-facing. I can bring them on. They can be front-facing too. Nothing wrong with that. But I will do the music and stuff. I'm going to go full Taylor Swift, except instead of interacting with my audience through selling out arenas, for now, I will be here on the ethereal internet plane for your pleasure, for your consumption needs, right? So yeah, that's what's happening. That's what's going to happen. That's what always will happen. So my bet is, making this platform, building a community. You know what? Building a community is step one. Step two is rocking out. And that's why no one gets into rock for that. No one gets into rock for that. And especially if you want to get, if you're getting into rock because you're like, I want to get status so I can get girls. It's like, well, rock's a long-term play. Because the first, 4 years or 5-10 years before you're big and successful and famous are going to be being honest and being on a microphone for an extended period of time. And if you're just going, oh, yeah, and trying to like mute the camera, you have nothing to say. You have nothing for people to listen to. You have nothing for people to engage with, nothing for people to want to talk to or hear from or ever listen to ever again in their life. So think about that before you try and engage in the activities like a poser. Now, people talk about poser. I don't really care about any of these things. They don't matter. They don't lead to anything meaningful. It's all about building a platform, building an audience, platforming other people, and building a scene. Having, I guess, what I'm deeming active rock. I want rock to be to be a current culture. I genuinely want there to be a present rock culture. I want things in the present. I don't want old bands or small rinky-dink shows. I genuinely want there to be rock culture now in the present today. Not tomorrow, not in a week. I want there to be rock culture. Now, if you want there to be rock bands, you want other people to be put on game, because here's the thing. You don't need to like Joe Rogan's stand-up. You don't need to like his political views. You don't need to like his interests in bow hunting. You don't need to like any of that. But if you like comedy, you're like, oh, I'm going to listen to Joe Rogan, and then I'm going to get introduced to people who I will like. And if I click on an episode and I don't like them after 5 minutes, I turn the episode off. It cost me nothing. All it does, though, is increase the odds that we're going to have an active comedy culture and to build a huge comedy scene. And now all the comedians are successful because they have podcasts. And the ones who have the successful podcast have these successful careers, even if they're less funny. I think someone like Colin Turrell is a hysterical comedian. He got on the friggin' Tonight Show, even though he's like super offensive and he is like a straight white guy. Like, whatever you could say is all the incentives are for him to not be put on the Tonight Show because he's a filthy comedian, horribly offensive material, but he's funny. And he was on the Tonight Show, but his podcast isn't successful. The Colin Turo podcast is not successful in the sense that like it's not getting tons and tons of views. Even though he has on good guests and he's very funny. But he's struggling relative to other comedians who are good, but they're not nearly as funny. I like Sam Morril is a funny comedian, but his podcasts are way more successful than Colin Turo, and I think Colin is a much funnier comedian. Nothing against Sam Morril, I just think Colin is one of the best. Like I just think he's hysterical. I find his comedy really good. But his podcast isn't successful. So he can't tour. Well, I mean, he does tour, but like he's not doing as well as people who arguably aren't as funny. Huh, clever. So if you get your ego out of it, it should be about the art, and you're like, no, it should be about what works, building an audience, building a community, building people. Because really, that's the thing, it's the end consumer. The end consumer, and you work backwards. What do you want? You want rock to be alive. You want to get to go see bands, and you don't want it to be at some rinky-dink club where you're embarrassed to tell your friends because it sucks when they get there because the audio sucks and the crowd sucks and it's sketchy and you get your car broken into and there's no parking. That's not what you want as an audience. You want a band that's cool, that has cool merch, that's hanging out with famous people, that's doing all sorts of stuff, that's culturally relevant, that's making their best work now. And you want to see them playing in, 400, 500 person theaters in your city. You want to see them playing giant shows. You want to see them getting in beefs with different people. You want to see them, active. You want to see it now. You want to see it live. You want it to be alive. You want there to be a present, alive culture. That's what you want as a fan. And so if you're working backwards, where is that happening? Comedy, right now. Comically obvious. Do the exact same thing. Take your ego out of it. You want the fans to actually have, this is as a musician, if you take your ego out of it, right? I could sit there and I could write all these love songs, and I could play my guitar, and I could work on production forever, or I could shut the hell up, get on the microphone, and I can message producers, get them working on stuff with me, get a song coming out every 6 to 8 weeks, just so we can work on the craft and get better and be active and be current and getting good and making really good music. But the main thing is building the audience, building the platform, because once I do it, once, I'm the first one, and I blow up, and this blows up, and this becomes a huge platform, which it will, because I'm doing it every day for 10 years. You don't think it's going to blow up? It's going to blow up. So once The Rock Show with Connor Farrell is the biggest rock program in the world, it's game over. Rock is back. Within 3 months, I've brought on everyone. It's blowing up. Everyone's blowing up. Don't you realize that? Think about that. So yeah, I'm going to figure out how to pitch that to TikTok. Hey guys, huh? I should probably write it. Writing is probably a very good way. Like, right, here are the ideas. Here is the best way to phrase them. And this is the call to action. Call to action is go to YouTube, subscribe to the channel. Call to action is go to Twitter, subscribe to the channel. Call to action is go to Spotify. Call to action is probably going to be go to the link in my bio. Call to action is probably going to be click subscribe, click like, leave a comment, go to the bio, click the link, listen now, text it to your friend. Actually, it's probably going to be click subscribe, go click the link, text this to your friend. Tell them to listen to it and to text it to another friend. Think about it. If 10 people saw the podcast, but each of them told a friend, and 50% of them told a friend, right? 10 people tell 20 people. Okay. Now half of them, so 25. Now half of them, 23. Oh, okay. Even then, still 30 people. You can get a 3-time multiplier like that, something like that. I don't know. That's a math problem, by the way. That's a geometric series or something. But geometric series. Do I have a sunburn? Oh, I do. Oh, I gotta put some Ollivander oil on my sunburn. This video's gonna take forever to upload because it's gonna be like an hour. Ozzy Osbourne. I'm gonna get to 45 minutes because then this is an hour-long episode with 15 minutes of advertisements. Technically, it'd be 12 and a half minutes, so I should get to 48. I don't need to, though, because especially if I'm doing it every day, I can make them half hours. Which means 6 minutes of ads. Yay! The ads are to keep the lights on, but also because the ads are going to be for stuff that rock people actually want. That's the funny thing, too, is what you're going to get advertised is the stuff you want. And if you really can't be bothered to sit through the ad, you click skip. That's what you're going to do. But the fact that you're hearing them and exposed to them 7 days a week, after a month, you've heard their name 30 times, you're pretty aware, and if anyone mentions that they need that thing or something that does that or they have that problem that the product solves, you're going to mention to them because you're aware of it now. And that's going to work. And that's where the advertisers pay me. That's where, if I said I did 3 podcasts a week, I would need 2,000 views an episode for an hour-long podcast. Let's say I'm doing 7 a week. Then for an hour-long podcast each day, I could maybe go with 1,000. 1,000 is enough, and that's 1,000 views within the first 30 days, right? These are views within the first 30 days. So let's say do 7 30-minute podcasts a week. Well, now you still need 2,000 because it's 30-minute podcasts, and you still need 1,000. Or no, you still need 2,000. Yeah. So you can either half the length, or what was, wait a minute, okay. I gotta keep track of these things. So, I said 2,000 people for 3 a week and for an hour. It's an hour times 3 times 2,000. Okay. Now, if there's 7 a week, they can be 30 minutes. That's what it is. If I do 7 a week, they can be either half the audience or half the length. So it can either be 30 minutes each time, still with 2,000 views across all platforms within the first 30 days in each episode on average, right? Or it could be 1,000 views, hour-long podcast every day, 1,000 views cumulative. Think about that. Because that's for me to do this full time. Because the interesting thing is, once I'm doing this full time, are you kidding me? Are you kidding me? Because then it's just DM people until they get on, making TikToks all day, blowing this up, working with producers, making songs, getting other people connected with producers. It's turning this thing into a full-blown podcast record label. You sign people to a 2-year contract so that once you blow them up, they own everything they're doing. And then if they want to keep working with you, they can just pay for individually for different services. They're not locked into, a contract like a normal record label or anything. Because the point is to put people on the map and to keep putting people on the map. The point is not to blow someone up and then harvest, off of that later. It's to blow them up, probably like make money from that a little bit, but it's actually more the fact that you would take like a percent of the revenue of the podcast listens, right? And the advertisements and all that stuff that you make from the podcast. You would probably do like 30% the label, 70% the artist, right? So if the label's New Rock Dynasty, that'd be like 30% New Rock Dynasty, 70% whatever artist we sign. And then, you maybe make it 3-year, 4-year contract. Because it's like, then if we're getting big guests on, we're getting them on, like that's an upfront investment on our part. But they're still making 70% of the thing. And they're probably going to be much more successful than we are. Let's say after a year, they're getting 4,000, 5,000, 6,000 views an episode because the Rock Show is getting 30,000 views an episode. If I make, let's say once this pops to a certain extent, if I'm making a good bit of money, even if they're making 70%, they're making 5 times the money total. So 70% of 5. What's 70% of 5? They're making 350% more than me. So if I made 150 grand a year, they're going to make what? 500 grand a year. Wow. You see, that's a good deal for them. And then the company would only make 150 grand, for every 500 grand they make. Think about that. This is a way for musicians, right? Think about this, though. And so not every person is going to be like getting, 8,000 views every episode of their podcast on average, but that's not nearly impossible. And if that's the amount that makes 500 grand a year just from that, it's like, oh, now this is something that people can actually do. And when they put people on, there's a huge incentive on their part to say, okay, I'm going to put you on game now. I'm going to get a little bit of percent up, for the first couple of years. But once I use my connections, I put my reputation on the line. Now people are going to choose carefully because who they're putting on game, and bringing on and telling their fans to go listen to is going to reflect on them. Like the best thing Dr. Dre ever did was put Eminem on the map. Think about that, right? I learned about Dr. Dre from listening to Eminem. Think about that. So that's the incentive these artists who are making 500 grand a year just from the podcast. Then they're going to do merch. Then they're going to do other things. They're making $1 million a year. These people are rich. They're rich now. And it's not because the goal is to be rich, but it's if you can make full-time money, like good full-time money, doing rock, then if people want to double, triple, quadruple that, it's much easier once you're already successful. Because the barrier for success is to like, okay, it's better than going to college and becoming a doctor or an engineer or like something like that. If you can do that, because the reason I'm saying is you want to make the highest threshold. It's like if you cross that and it's genuinely pick up a microphone, podcast, network with people, becomes a thing that can happen quicker than 4 years of college or 8 years of college, 6 years of college, and you could do it in 2 years by signing to a thing. Think about this. Do you realize what this will do to society? I don't think you do. And maybe I shouldn't even be saying this, but I don't care because honestly, this is the whole point to get the mission out there is that you're going to start looking at this thing and be like, this is colossal. There's no reason this wouldn't happen with other genres. See, country hasn't even gotten wise to this yet because they still have the record industry. Country still has the record industry. And people say country's the new rock. I love country. Good for them. But no, I'm not letting that happen. Rock is going to be the new rock. Yeah. Rock's going to be the new rock. It's not about reinventing the wheel. As much as I love throwing in like whatever I can that's like jazz or blues or different techniques and styles and mixing like, metal like things and sweep picking and stuff, but mixing it with blues and rock and all these different things and trying to have a unique voice and different sound and doing different tones and like mix like some weird shoegaze stuff. And like I love like, music history and stuff like that and being like an a-hole music historian about stuff. That's not what it's about. It's about being active. It's about it being alive. It's about building a community. It's about being present. It's about it being real now. It's happening now. It's alive. It's alive. So politely, F off. Rock is the new rock. And it will be because of us. It'll be because of you. It'll be because of me. It'll be because of you. I'm doing the easy part. The easy part is hop on the mic and let you know. The part that's hard is on you sending this to your friends and saying, you know what? I don't care if this Connor guy is dorky and my friends think this is embarrassing. Why did he send it to me? It's that he's right. And this is going to happen. And so it's like, even if it takes like 2 seconds of like, yeah, maybe did my friends go, why did you send me this lame stuff? This is lame. It's the fact that you send it to them. And then you do again. And then you do again. And over a couple months, they listen. And then they do the same. And then they do the same. And then now your whole friend group's talking about it. So even if it's 2 people, then you're talking about it. And then the whole friend group is part of the conversation. And then after a month, they've been hearing about it, because they're, because you guys are listening every day, every other day, once a week or whatever. And you guys start talking about it. Now it's spread to your whole friend group. Now you went from 1 person. After a couple months, it becomes 2. And then after a couple weeks, it becomes 8. Right? Think about this. Think about that. So yes, you might get a little bit of embarrassment. This Connor guy's kind of dorky. He's nerdy. He's a white boy. He doesn't have a rock and roll haircut, rock and roll lifestyle. He's a little erratic. He likes more like System of a Down, and like he likes more like punk, and he doesn't like as much indie stuff. There's nothing wrong with indie stuff, but it's just like he doesn't like that. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. He's dorky. Sometimes he slurs his words. He doesn't sound cool. Doesn't look cool. Look at that. There's cables in the background. You see that? Wow, that's so embarrassing. Yeah, stuff like that. So it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter that little bit of it doesn't feel good. Nothing ever worth doing feels good at the start. You remember the first time you ever went to the gym, the first time you picked up an instrument, the first time you went and talked to a girl, the first time you I don't know, the first time you ever did anything, it felt uncomfortable because it was new and you knew a part of you was like, this is new. Uh-oh. That's great and all. We're going to bring back rock. Who cares? You're going to feel that. You're going to go flick. You're going to kick it away because you're going to kick country's ass. You're going to kick pop's ass. Nothing wrong with them. Love them. We'll work with them. But when you unleash rock and roll, it's the best. It's going to win. Love rap. I do. There's lots of good rap. But let's not kid ourselves. We're going to win. Rock and roll is the best. Sorry, not sorry. It's the best. What are we talking about? What are we talking about? Seriously, it's the best. So yeah, send this to your friend. Boom. Go do it. It's going to be embarrassing. Who cares? Who cares? You send this to your friend. They send it to their friend. All it takes is like, I'll make an example. I said, call him Turl. Call him Turl. I don't think his podcast is that successful. I think you could comment if, let's say, this podcast gets to 2,000 listeners an episode, and half of you go and comment and message him and DM him, do the Rock Show with Connor Farrell, do the Rock Show with Connor Farrell, do the Rock Show with Connor Farrell. Boom, you've got Colin Turl coming on, right? You tell him about the mission. You get him to get other people, other comedians, right? Before you know it, you've got someone like Louis J. Gomez, Legion of Skanks. Okay, who does he know? Big J. Big J. Okerson, literally friends with Korn. No, I'm not saying, I'm going to go to Column to get to Lewis, to get to Jay, because then I get to Korn. No. The whole point is, with a small, fluid, mobile militia, it's literally like the American Revolution versus the British. We can hit the weak points. We get people. We climb this ladder. We build this community, because all we got to do is let big enough people with enough audience and connections know about the mission, and then we bring it back. That's the thing, because it doesn't matter if they don't like my music. They don't like the music I like even, as long as they like rock, because that's the mission. The mission is to put rock on the map. What's the vehicle I can guarantee I can do that through? My podcast. I can't control someone else's podcast. So we'll start with mine. Now, if we'd like to start with yours, start your podcast, start doing it every day. I'm going to come on your podcast. We're going to get anyone who comes on mine who's successful, I'm going to get them on yours to the best of my ability that I can, that I have a relationship with them. But you see the point. It doesn't matter whose podcast blows up, right? If you want to do it, do it. And then I'll help you whatever way I can. Because then you blow up. Then you have me on. Then I blow up. Even if you don't have me on, you have other people on. They blow up. That's the whole point. We just need to get someone to blow up. Now, I can guarantee you that I'm going to be doing this. So I can speak on behalf of me and say, blow me up. Blow me. Blow me up. We're going to bring back rock. It's that simple. So that's what I'm thinking about, is like, once I can do this full time, it literally just becomes me spending all day networking, mobilizing, getting bigger guests on, getting people on, working on music, getting producers, connecting other bands with producers, and getting their podcast set up, and getting their connections and getting all that stuff. Look at Andrew Dice Clay. His kids have a band. I should have them on. Is it so I can get Andrew Dice Clay on? Yes. But also, I want to put his kids' band in front of an audience. I want to build a relationship with them, because they're going to keep doing music, and they're going to keep putting stuff out. And even if, I don't need to love their music for you to love their music. I'm aware of that. So I want to have them on. So you want to build goodwill with them, right? But it's like, what do you do to have that leverage to where you can come on if you've got something that's a little unprofessional, it looks like this, right? Well, you can, if you're doing it full time and it gets to that level, then I'm making 150 grand a year. I can definitely put money into this setup, and I'm doing it full time. So I literally can do it full time, right? I can have a studio, I can have a setup, I can have another person working with me, and then I can be doing the music and stuff like that full time. So now it looks professional. We've got really professional sounding music going out, really professional music videos, really professional, photography, videography, all of these things. We got very professional editing. We've got intro, outro. We've got all this stuff, whatever little production things you want. Now we've got bigger and bigger sponsors, or sponsors that are at least committing to doing this stuff. And let's say you get a sponsor like Sheath Underwear, who's sponsored Legion of Skanks and Skankfest and all these things. Now they're sponsoring the UFC. It's like they clearly believed in comedy, and so they invested there, even though it wasn't the most glamorous thing, because they believed in the mission. That was something, if anyone's going to have money, it should be people in this cause that I believe in, right? And so, likewise, if they like rock, let's say, right? Then it's like, okay, we're going to have the show. It's going to be nice and professional because now I'm doing it full time. We've got professional videography, photography. We've got good music coming out, and we're bringing musicians on and putting them on the map to whatever extent we can. Now let's get some comedians from Gas Digital Network, or that the Legion of Skanks have connections to, right? I mean, talk about Sal Volcano. Talk about TJ Miller. They don't need to like me. They don't need to like me. I don't expect everyone to like me. Most people probably won't like me. I'm very polarizing. I have a big personality. But that means I'm good for this. That means I'm going to get attention. That means people are going to have something to say, whether it's I hate that guy or I like that guy. That's good, because I just want there to be action happening so that when I bring bands on, people get to see the bands and people get to make their own decisions on if they like the bands, right? And so if someone like Sal Volcano or TJ Miller is a big fan of rock music and a big fan of art and having that kind of pop up, then they don't need to like me. They can say, I'm going to go on the podcast because this is going to help rock, and I believe in this mission. And if they don't, good for them. Don't do it. Now, if they believe in the mission and they think I'm a scumbag or they don't like me, they can have a podcast and bring on musicians and do it. It's just getting this idea out. It's getting this message out. I think you get it now. I think you're starting to get it. Now, if you have more ideas, text me, message me. Instagram, Connor O. Farrell on Instagram. CONNERO period FARRELL. CONNERO period FARRELL. That's Connor O. Farrell on Instagram. Go find me there. YouTube, it's Connor Farrell, The Rock Show with Connor Farrell. Spotify, it's The Rock Show with Connor Farrell. I guess you can't message me on there. And Twitter, X, it's Connor Farrell. CONNERFARRELL. CONNERFARRELL. It's probably attached in the description of whatever video you're watching here. And here's the thing, it's funny, is like, this could go viral. People could be watching it, sharing it, and it could, boom, this is the one that blows. It could also be that like 5 people watch this. It could be 0 people watch this. It doesn't matter. The thing is, this is going to happen. And so the thing I'm working on now is going to be reaching out to producers, and this is where we're going to be getting updates on, is reaching out. I have to use the restroom. I drink a lot of water before I started recording. And now it's going to be reaching out to these producers, getting these people on board, right? And starting to build a relationship. And then that's for music, right? Getting some music going. And then second, it's going to be making TikToks, making things, reaching out to people, telling them this is the mission, refining that pitch, figuring out how to say it, and then just video after video after video after video after video after video saying, share this if you want to bring back rock. Share this if you want to bring back rock. Resharing memes and saying, share this if you want to bring back rock. That's the entire point. That's the entire mission. It's not about looking cool. It's not about being famous. It's not about any of this stuff. It's about bringing back rock, because once we bring back rock, we have rock. We can have rock stars. And I would like to be a rock star. That requires that we bring back rock. That requires that we have an active rock scene, that we've got producers working with people. Now that the record labels aren't putting producers and bands together, we've got to. What's the incentive for that? Well, the producer gets to be on the band's podcast where they have a huge audience. The producer gets to work with other bands, make a bunch of money from the songwriting credits, but also they can have their own podcast, make money from that, and get to work on, because here's the thing, is the songwriting money and the royalties and all that stuff's going to take like 5-10 years after the catalog's built. Then it's going to be making millions every year, right? When all these are like the huge, biggest new rock songs of the decades, right? The new Pasa Sugar May, like the new, like iconic rock songs. Once those are out and you've got a catalog of them, even if you don't have like half a songwriting credit or a quarter of a songwriting credit, you're going to make tons of money off it. So that's where the producers are able to do this stuff. And so we're going to bring them together. And the incentive for that is they're building an audience, we're building an audience, everyone's building an audience, we're all going to be successful. Successful means people can do it. If people can make money and it beats being a doctor or a lawyer or something that is seen as high status or noble or like a steady, good idea, largely by society, because society says that you can take 8 years, 10 years, 12 years, spend, 500 grand, I don't know, whatever, 300 grand in student loans to become a doctor because it's worth it because you make so much money. If you can make double that money in 5 years of podcasting, except the only cost was just whatever your expenses were, working a job, are you kidding me? People are going to do this. It becomes more than viable. It's going to incentivize people for the wrong reasons to get into it. Maybe they fall in love with it later. But the people who are definitely going to succeed are the people who are in it for the right reasons, because they want to do the music. They want to do, that's what they love, right? The so-called right reasons. Who cares? But it's going to be irresistible now, even though it's not glamorous. And that's the thing. It might weed out the people who are like, I want to look cool. Okay, well, good for you. You're weeded out. It's the people with determination who are going to go and sit there and muscle through it. That's the thing. It's going to work. It's going to be successful. Like, we're bringing back rock. Hop on, kid. So yeah, that pitch. Refining that pitch. That's what I'm working on. That's the main thing, is refining that pitch, going to TikTok, telling people, and having a clear place to go listen to the podcast. I'm going to build the audience. Let's say it's YouTube, right? I say, go click the link in my bio. I say, go click the link in my bio. I say, go to YouTube, go listen to the show, and text it to your friend. If I say that, how about I just say, go listen to the show? And the first thing I lead with everything is why you should send this to your friend right now. Let's say I lead with, this is why you should send it with your friend. Because then my CTA, my call to action, and my TikTok at the end is, go listen to the Rock Show. You want to bring it back? I'll tell you how we're bringing it back. It's there. I'll tell you right now, but it's too long and it's going to confuse you. Go there. Or I tell them, I say, here's how I want to do it. Go to the Rock Show, send it to your friend, listen to it, have your friend listen to it. You're going to get the idea. Spread it. That's it. The literal definition of viral is that it's contagious. When one person comes into contact, it spreads. They spread it to other people. So if one person spreads it to 3 people, you have a 3-time multiplier, 3-time exponential. Assuming there's no decay that's kind of fighting that, it goes forever. Let's say the next episode I do, I specifically at the top explain the mission clearly. I say, send this to one other person. It's that simple. Send it to 3 people. Send it to 5. Send it to 5 people. And if you can't send it to 5, you'll end up sending it to 3. But send it to 5 people. Okay? Listen to it. Send it to 5 people. Listen to 10 minutes. Listen to 5 minutes of the show. Don't listen to the full hour. Listen to 5 minutes. Listen to 5 minutes of the show and send it to 5 people. You can send it to 5 people while you're listening to the show. Get to the 5-minute mark. Send it to 5 people. Do that every day. Set a reminder on your phone to listen to 5 minutes of the Rock Show and to send it to 5 people, even if it's the same 5 people every day. Because they're going to click the show and it's going to tell them to listen to it for 5 minutes each day and to send it to 5 people. What's going to happen? It's going to spread. It's going to get to the point where it's at least 2,000 views per episode. It's probably going to get to 10,000, 20,000, 30,000, 400,000 views per episode. So now, just from that simple thing, and I make the TikToks, eventually, if I make 80 TikToks a day saying the same thing, go listen to the Rock Show, go listen to the Rock Show, here's the mission, go listen to the Rock Show, here's the mission, go listen to the Rock Show, send it to 5 people, listen to 5 minutes, 5. That's how you do it. 5 squared, boom, 5 times 5. Boom, unstoppable. Rock is alive. 5 times 5, unstoppable. Boom, rock is alive. 5 times 5, boom, boom, boom. Unstoppable. Rock is alive. Jeff Goldblum. There you go. That's what I'm going to do. Man, I got to use the restroom, but it's good. It makes me talk. Oh, I can't stop? What's happening? Oh, shoot. What's happening? What's happening? I gotta exit full screen. Let's see, why can't I stop? Why can't I pause? What's happening? It says I can't stop the rock show. Hello, I need to use the restroom. Anyways, people, that's what's happening. And you can see it's going to work, and it's going to be incredible. And yeah, this is going to be a really crazy ride. You better hop on now. You can hop on later, but God, is this going to be insane? You don't even like my music. You don't even like the music that I like. Royal Blood, Queens of the Stone Age, Arctic Monkeys, The Strokes, Franz Ferdinand. Of course, you love Led Zeppelin, love Black Sabbath, uh, Rat, all the hair metal, the Smiths, all the indie bands, Blur, um, all that stuff. Love Gorillaz, love rap. Mostly like Dr. Dre, Eminem, Snoop Dogg, like '90s type of stuff, early 2000s. And then love like System of a Down, Puddle of a Mud, Limp Bizkit, Corn, Flyleaf, Follow Your Life, in London. Anyways, God damn it. This is crazy. This is the frontier. This is where it's happening. It's happening now. I gotta use the restroom so bad. I'm gonna use the restroom. But I'll catch you guys on the flip side. Why won't it let me pause the recording? Stop the recording. Stop the recording. Anyways, I'm gonna edit here. Okay. Peace. Peace. Come back tomorrow.